Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in just a few moments. Hello, and welcome to today's American Nuclear Society program, License Renewal, Smarter, Faster, Better. I'm Dan Goldberg, the Director of Programs for A&S. Excuse me. I'm excited for our next installment of our Supplier Showcase series featuring GSE Solutions and Excel Services Corporation. Before we get started and turn it over to our featured speakers, I'd like to couple of quick brief notes. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the Q&A function. Our presenters will attempt to address as many questions as possible. The event will be recorded, and a link to the recording will be emailed to registrants tomorrow. Additionally, certificates of attendance are available by request. Contact information will be posted in the chat shortly. And finally, we ask that all participants adhere to the A&S Code of Ethics and Respectful Behavior Policy, which can be found at ans.org. With those notes out of the way, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our special guests. Keith Brinson is a veteran nuclear engineer with a career spanning naval shipyards, refueling projects, and reactor operations. He is experienced in license renewal, fuel cycle optimization, and regulatory compliance. Keith was also a former manager of special nuclear projects for the Department of Defense. He is now supporting global licensing initiatives as a senior project manager with Excel. Nessa Lippincott is a seasoned nuclear engineer with over a decade of experience spanning nuclear design, operations, licensing, reactor engineering, safety analysis, and license renewal. She currently serves as a senior consultant at GSE Engineering, where she develops innovative solutions for nuclear power plants, including authoring a first-of-its-kind buried pipe aging management program. Keith and Anessa, welcome and thank you for joining us. Anessa, I will turn it over to you.
All right. I hope everybody's having a great afternoon. It's a little bit rainy here in Missouri, but that makes it a good day for a webinar, right? So we're going to talk to you all a little bit about various aspects of license renewal today. A little bit about applications, implementation, stuff into PEO, and the inspections, challenges, and everything that goes along with it. We might touch on a little bit of next generation tools. That's the beauty of license renewal, is that it goes in for the next 20 years. You don't know what we're going to come up with. We'll talk a little bit about some industry insights and some proven methods for successful license renewal. Next slide, please. So I work for GSE Solutions. GSE's been around for over 5 decades, and we provide a lot of engineering services. My group primarily does engineering programs, but we also have a design engineering group. We've got thermal performance, we do simulation stuff, and then there's me. I do license renewal along with my team. And Keith, do you want to talk about Excel?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
1 second, let me get back here. Thanks for the introduction, and I do appreciate ANS putting us on and letting us get our stories out there and possibly help some folks out that are getting ready to go through license renewal original or the sequential license renewal. Excel Service has been in the business 40, 50 years, kind of along with GSE, and we've always specialized in tech spec modifications, licensing applications, Now we're real strong in license renewal implementation. We've got a lot of seasoned veterans that work for us that have come out of the plants, retired, or decided to go into a different line of work and ended up working with us on our team. And we kind of our biggest niche right now is the implementation part of it, which of course is the when everything gets proven on what you're saying on your license application. But we are kind of pioneering right now, working with a AI company on licensing application that we feel will streamline and meet the requirements that NRC is looking at for reduction in time and cost, which are very important in the application process. So again, thanks for having us on. I appreciate it.
Next slide. So Keith, you want to take it away?
All right. When we go to a plant, we work with the plant. They understand their operation, they understand their organization. We take a bird's eye view of the whole situation, and a lot of the things we run into when we start working with plants is basically understanding exactly what their focus should be on the application process and especially the implementation process. I know a lot of the NRC documentation that is basically safety related to make sure everything is operated safely, and you get into the GAL. They're not requirements, but there are guidelines, and some plants, depending on the age of the plant, some plants are pre-GAL, some plants are 1801, some plants are the new plants going into or the older plants going into subsequent license renewal are in the 2191, 2192 category. So you have to understand where you fall in those guidelines that NRC has put out as far as where your plant was licensed and what you're licensing to. And a lot of the issues that we see whenever we go to a plant to work with them on these is they understanding a lot of the old school verbiage and what the NRC is looking for. And I know a lot of the engineers that we work with are young engineers coming out, may have been in the plant for 2 or 3 years, ended up with a license renewal application, and you get the same story. Don't worry about it. It'll be a couple of years before you have to even look at it, but then it creeps up on you. So we try to help out with taking the lead or being an advisory on sample population inspections, when they're available, when to use them, when the best, some of the best issues, and you can avoid there again cost and time with working with those. Opportunistic inspections, kind of a new animal that's out there right now, and it's a little bit in the gray zone on what you have to and when you have to do it, but it gives you an option that during a maintenance cycle, if you're working on a similar component, you can actually take credit for an opportunity inspection. If you're underground buried piping or a tank that you cannot necessarily get to, I won't say it's completely inaccessible, it's just not opportunistic to get to it. You can put that under an opportunistic inspection category, where at a time whenever you do have a chance to do the excavation, you can take credit for it. So it kind of gives you some relief. And then one of the things we really look at is getting an early start with your inspections and your one-time inspections, your walk downs, opportunist inspections, and get aligned with the outage team early on. You want to be in there 2 or 3 outages minimum before you get to your start of your POE or PO, so that you can make sure you've got at least one outage left in your pocket to clean up everything and make sure you've got everything aligned. Next slide. Some of the challenges that we've run into with a lot of the plants that are kind of common occurrences that we're seeing. There's a lot of high rate of turnover, especially in engineering and the licensing department. A lot of the engineers will be there for a couple of years and they'll move on, or they'll, move up, or however they go. But we see where a lot of folks, that it's a high turnover, even situations where we'll start out with an engineer whenever we're into the application or the implementation process, and we'll have to start with somebody else all over again. So be prepared for that. The way we set up the process, we can flow pretty well with it because of the experience we got. And 9 times out of 10, we're helping the engineers along with it anyway. Program owner engagement is paramount in being successful in application and especially implementation. It's your system. If you're watching, or if you're in attendance today and you're a program engineer or a program owner, you own the system. It's yours. We're there to help you with every option we can and every resource we can to make sure that you have a complete understanding of the program and what is expected of you during the application, and especially during the implementation process, where we're working with you so that you can ensure the NRC that program is going to run safely and as it was designed to, for the length of whether you're going from 40 to 60 or 60 to 80, it's very important that they understand that you know the system and how to run it safely. Loss of tribal knowledge. A lot of the plants that are out there were built back in the 80s, came online in the mid 80s. And a lot of the folks that were there grew up with the plants. They started as young engineers or mechanics, maintenance department, and a lot of those folks are starting to retire. So you're getting a lot of that tribal knowledge that is very, very valuable in knowing how the plant operates and how to best operate the plant. So that's one thing Excel has in its quiver, is that we've got a lot of those folks love the industry, want to stay in it, just got tired of all of the extra stuff that goes with being at a site, training and everything else. So we've got that kind of depth that we can reach back and definitely help with some of the tribal knowledge. Last bullet there is kind of an odd one, but we ran into one of the plants I was at. We did an uprate, and a lot of those older plants were built back with World War II technology. Everything was heavy, like tanks, and just solid. A lot of steel, a lot of weight, a lot of strength. And now you're getting into new fabrication, you got the same requirements, but you've got different materials. So you run into situations where they just won't take the stress or the strain that some of these plants, the larger plants, will put on them. So a lot of engineering that's got to go into that as far as like for like, and understanding where you are on your parts and how they're going to perform. Next slide. Some of the latest tools I mentioned. We're working with a company in artificial intelligence right now, which is absolutely phenomenal what they're doing with it. Probably one of the largest things I'll say about artificial intelligence. Is absolutely great. It's a wonderful tool, a learning tool, but you definitely want to understand your company's policies on how you use artificial intelligence whenever you start getting into that process. It can learn, it will learn from systems and give you data, give you information, but keep in mind that word learn is huge out there in the industry, because if you've got it directly in your systems, it will go through your systems and find whatever it's looking for. It doesn't have any bounds whenever you turn it loose. So always ensure that whenever you get into an AI situation, whatever company you're going to use, if it's us or wherever you're going, that one of your primary goals is to maintain an air gap between your system, as far as your plant systems, related systems, and AI. On that same line, I have a project management background of just kind of one of the things I fell into, and I absolutely enjoy it, and I've done it for a long time. And I myself still learn from the project management development of the project plan. A lot of engineers have some knowledge of project management, but I recommend you get a strong project manager in your team, on your team, to help you develop the plan, because it's a learning tool. It takes you through everything you need to know. And once you get that project plan in place, you've got a real good understanding of where you're going, how you're going to get there, and how long it's going to take to happen. License renewal, like I said, the plants that are out there have been operating for 30 plus years. A lot of them have already been their first license renewal from 40 to 60 years. I believe there's only like two, maybe three plants left that haven't done that. And we're actually working with one of the plants right now on getting that their implementation done. So whenever we look at license renewal, it's not a new science. It's been there for a while, and we should be able to get it right. We've been doing it long enough. We should be able to understand it and do it right. And that's where we're leaning heavy on the AI process. We're downloading constantly data into AI and having it learn it, so that whenever we put in an application, it goes and looks for any gaps, does great gap analysis between your operating procedures, your safety analysis, your GAL, and it'll do those, at lightning speed much quicker than we could ever do them, and get your gaps in there so you know where you are on your gaps analysis. However, there is pencil to paper is always, a tried and true resource, developing spreadsheets and schedules. Don't get caught in a trap of working from a spreadsheet or a burn down curve. You need a spreadsheet that is instead of a schedule. Make sure you got a good schedule, and you're tracking the schedule along with your spreadsheets for your burn down curves, and keep all of those aligned so that the site knows where they are, because you need a good schedule, because at any time you may have senior management that wants to see a snapshot of where you are and where you're headed, and a spreadsheet is definitely not the way to go there. You want a good schedule that shows them where they are. Back to implementation again, I can't emphasize the importance of program ownership and engagement. Everybody's got license renewal that's in there that are working with us. However, you do have a day job, and we totally understand that. And this is whenever this starts piling on, it really gets crazy, and you really need the help. And that's where we do excel in doing that, is picking up that and helping out with the program engineers with all the resources that we have. On a quick note, one of the plants we're working with right now, they opted to keep some of the amps on their side and let their engineers work them. Perfectly fine with us. We picked up the slack on the other amps, and we're working together in unison. So that helps. I mean, now you've got learning experience for all of the program owners, and it's really coming together nicely, and we're starting to get good engagement from the other program owners. Next page. Next slide. Again, we talked about artificial intelligence. I don't know how many of you may have attended or sat in on the license renewal task force that we just went through for the winter session. But there was a lot of discussion on an application possibly going away, and ended up being more of a 10-year, 5-year, 8-year inspection process that the plants go through, rather than go through an application for us. So keep that in mind, that we may go a different direction on applications. But with the AI, again, we're downloading years of experience as data OE coming out of it. Again, the learning process, teaching AI to learn the comparisons between the application, your SER, your GAL, your FSAR. it can do that a lot faster than what we know and find a lot more information. And a lot of things we're seeing with the NRC right now, they want to be leaner, they want to be faster, and they want to be cheaper. And they have a mandate to do that. We don't have a mandate as far as plants and utilities as far as that, but they're driving it. And once they get to that point, they're going to look at the utilities and say, okay, we've done our job. Now you guys need to do your job to reduce the cost. That's where AI is going to be very important. And a lot of times you're going to see where we used to have a lot of RAIs going out of an application or going into implementation. NRC is leaning heavily on clarification calls. They've got a question, they set up a call, they ask you the question, you answer the question, and you move on and you go from there and see if there's any follow-up. But so artificial intelligence is here to stay. It's great. It's a great tool to learn and use, so don't be afraid of it. But be careful with who you pick. Make sure you understand and do your homework on exactly what their system is capable of and where you're going to end up as far as your application or implementation. So next slide. I think that's my last slide. So Vanessa, I'll turn it over to you.
All righty. Thank you very much. Now, I do want to clarify something real quick. I don't think applications are going away anytime soon for license renewal. What Brett was asking us about at License Renewal Task Force, Brett's our NEI representative, was they were brainstorming ideas of how to reduce costs for the NRC. And one of the ideas was treat it the way that other countries treat license renewal, which is with a periodic inspection to ensure that they are good to go for another however long. The general consensus that I gathered from the folks that were there at License Renewal Task Force was that they do not prefer to go that way. They would rather continue to do applications. Now, if we could extend the applicable time of the application out to maybe 40 years again, that would be cool. But having the application and the SER gives you something to point back to when you do have other inspections, especially if you do something different than what the guidance says. And the guidance changes all the time, but if you have something in your SER that says this is how we're going to do this program, then you evaluate the guidance as OE, you don't have to immediately adopt it. So I'll go ahead and get into it. A successful application. This is a little bit different take than what has traditionally been done, but I want you all to think about this just a little bit. The goal is not to perfectly conform to the GAL. The GAL is not regulation, it is guidance. You don't have to do everything that the GAL says. And also, zero RAIs, it's the NRC's to ask, it's their whole job to ask questions and to probe. What the application is there for is to describe to the NRC the way that your plant intends to manage aging during the period of extended operation. So we'll go ahead. Next slide, please. So there's a couple different strategies you can take. You can essentially copy the GAL. This has been done in the past when folks thought it would expedite things. But what generally happens is you end up promising a ton of inspections or maybe even some plant modifications. For example, cathodic protection under buried pipe. Even if you copy the GAL, you're not guaranteed to avoid RAIs. For those of y'all that don't know, it's a request for additional information from the NRC. You get those if you don't provide enough information about why whatever you propose as far as a program goes is adequate for your site. And if the NRC doesn't think that the justification you provided gives them reasonable assurance, they'll ask more questions, and they need that information on the docket to make a decision. If you don't have the good technical basis and you just copied the GAL, you might get talked into doing more inspections. You might get talked into doing some plant mods during the audit phase and breakout questions. And then you come out on the other side with programs that simply monitor the failure. Or you can take the goal under advisement and say, well, we need programs that are like this, that have these 10 elements and manage these aging effects for these material and environment combinations. And then you can develop programs that make sense for what your plant does for your environment. If you're in the South, you have different weather than folks do in the North, and there's different weather out in Phoenix, Arizona than what there is on the East Coast. So sometimes the environmental factors play a little bit. And plants, while they might be very similar design, they do get operated just a little bit differently sometimes. You want to develop a good, strong technical justification to avoid costly and unnecessary plant mods and unnecessary inspections. You absolutely should go look at the condition of your site. I'm not saying zero inspections and don't maintain your plant. I'm saying have a good reason for doing all of it. And just because it's guidance doesn't necessarily mean it's a great reason to go do it. And the other great thing about this is later on you'll have flexibility and freedom to make the right decisions during implementation and SPEO. Every single site has a corrective action program. And if you find that you have an issue, you turn to your corrective action program to fix it. And part of fixing it might be updating your aging management program. Next slide, please. So you've written your application and you've defended it to the NRC, and they've provided your SER, and everybody's all gone out for dinner to celebrate, and now you're all done, right? No. Now we have to actually implement and do all the things that we promised the NRC we would do. I did this at a site that I was at before I came to work for GSE. I was in charge, I was the aging management coordinator out there, and we had you just have this big bucket of work, and it all has to be done 6 months prior to prior to PEO, and just go get it done. So you've got to write procedures, you've got to write jobs, you've got to come up with PMs if the program needs a PM. You have to have good work instruction, and you need to make sure that all of it meets what you said you were going to do. Sometimes you got to set up new programs and new processes to track things. You modify existing programs that you maybe took credit for. And then there's, like I said before, we're always coming up with new OE in the nuclear industry, and that'll inform your programs. You'll have 5437 Bravo things where every cycle you look at, you check mods and calcs and all kinds of things, and you're looking for components that maybe should have been included in the original application and the scope of license renewal that were missed, or new aging effects that you didn't know about before. It's newly identified items. And that gets wrapped up with your FSAR update to the NRC. And then as aging management coordinator, man, you do a lot of training because like Keith was saying, those AMP owners turn over a lot. And at least at my site, that was the aging management coordinator's job, was to train all those folks so that they understood what their program requirements were. And then there's just more stuff. Sometimes you've got to, it's not just aging management or aging management program owners that turn over. Sometimes management turns over and they come in and they go, why are we doing this? It's like, well, somebody promised the NRC that we were going to go look at this, and now we have to figure out how we're going to go look at this. What we do for implementation. And a lot of the time, that's when you find out, wow, we wrote this in the application and we can't really do it this way. Or the frequency for this is pretty often, and I don't know that we really need to be looking at carbon steel that's in plant air every 18 months for aging effects, because I don't think it's going to degrade that fast. Or sometimes you find something that we need to increase the frequency on it, and you have to make those program changes. But that's implementation's a whole lot of work. And that's where the rubber really meets the road. So next slide. Now, after you've finished implementation, you've entered PEO, the NRC is come and gone for their 71003 inspections, and you're operating into the period of extended operation. Everything's good, right? You don't have to do anything. You still have to follow your programs, but other than that, you're golden until you run into, and this is a lot of inspections to track. This is high administrative burden on the side of all the program owners and the aging management coordinator, and we still have all this turnover, and Bob retired and we're waiting on Sam to graduate college and take over that position, but now there's this gap, and we've just got a lot of stuff to catch up on, and things get missed. You're still doing operating experience reviews and 5437 Bravo reviews, and so maybe the program needs to be modified due to those things. Something else that happens in a site that's over 40 years old is sometimes things actually age a little bit, and we do need to address some real issues. But with that, sometimes the programs can't be followed the way that they were written. I cannot tell you the number of times that I've looked at the commitment. It's like, why did they write it that way? Because, well, one that I fixed pretty recently was this material environment combination. In this location, we need to UT this every time. Then everything that was in that material environment combination, that particular population of components, was all 1/2-inch tubing, and you couldn't UT it. So now we have to change it. And are we inspecting at a frequency that's inappropriate for the aging effect, like I discussed? So what do you do about any of those things? Your best option is to change your program. And folks will say, well, you can just 50-59 it. If you 50-59 it, you have to come up with something that's as good or better. And sometimes that takes a little bit of creativity. And that's where we come in. At GSE, we have the premier programs engineers, programs experts from all over the country, and they all work right here with me. It's great. We can develop really good programs that not only do what you need them to do, manage aging, but also make sense and are easy to implement. So, next slide, please. Then we kind of get into outsourcing to experts, and I don't want to be too salesy. I came from a plant, and I get it. I understand the challenges. There's competing priorities. There's a lot of administrative stuff you have to handle. There's outages that just every 18 months or 24 months if you're getting fuel cycle extensions going on. Your life turns upside down, and you just live at the plant for a month or so. And you just sometimes need a little bit of outside help that can stay focused on getting your application done or your implementation done, or even ensuring that your PEO inspections are on track and being completed. Because there's a whole lot of programs with those opportunistic inspections. And man, did we miss an opportunity, because there's operating experience of the NRC coming in and seeing a site that missed an opportunity to inspect, and then they get a violation. Make sure you want to make sure that your opportunistic inspection, anything that you use that for, your opportunity is very, very well defined. Sometimes there's hidden application mistakes that come back to bite you. Like like those opportunistic inspections. That sounds great from a management perspective. I don't have to do anything new, but then you miss an opportunity, and yeah, it's a problem. You need somebody to help you track all that. Sometimes traditional software is great for that, because that can marry up with your work management software and help you discover those opportunities. Or even if it's not an opportunistic inspection population, even if it's just a regular population of material and environment, then you have to hit 25 inspections if it can help identify those components that are already being worked on, so you can take advantage of an existing job for an inspection. It's hugely beneficial. One of my favorite things to do is to help sites through their audit phase for their application and help deal with the regulator and talk to the NRC. Most of the NRC inspectors are very reasonable as long as you give them enough technical justification to justify your position. That a lot of the time is all that they're looking for. And if you can explain what your site is doing very, very well, they will accept it most of the time. The other thing, we know a lot about things that have been done before. There's nothing new in nuclear. Every once in a while, we try something a little bit different, but there is always some kind of precedent that we can find from the last 50 years of operating experience, 60 years of operating experience that sites have. Well, there's always some kind of regulation decision or OE from another site that can be precedent to help inform a decision. And like Keith mentioned, that they've been helping out some sites with implementation stuff and kind of supplementing the team that's already there. We do the same sort of thing. We'll hop in and join your team, or we'll bring some of our other, create a team of our own to support you. And everybody that I've worked with at GSE, for the most part, came from a site, and we totally understand the woes and not necessarily the woes, but some of the challenges that happen on site. And but also how everything works together, and knowing who to call. Knowing who to call is half the challenge. Sometimes you need to call somebody in work management, sometimes it's ops, sometimes it's somebody in licensing or engineering or chemistry, whoever. But we come in and we can be a part of the team and help guide you in the right direction. On if we can't find the answer, we know exactly who to go ask. And just want you to keep in mind, everything that you decide for license renewal is up to you and your site. It's ultimately up to the site and how much you want to defend your position. If you do a really good job of writing the application and do programs that make a lot of sense and let that filter down, then your implementation's easy and your PEO is a breeze. If you have programs that you got the application through the NRC just fine because it matched what the goal said, then you might get into, man, we wrote this down, but I really don't know what we were thinking and how we plan to do that. And that's where you run into issues. So next slide, please. So yeah, in summary, inspections is a huge cost for sites, for both PEO and prior to PEO. And if you know what your requirements are, then and if you can get fewer, that when you if you can commit to as few as possible, you're better off in the long run because you can always do more than what's required, but it's very hard to justify doing less. And sometimes there's reasons to do less. Like if you wrote your application and then you find out you committed to 25 inspections, and then you find out that you don't have 25 components in that material environment combination. So just knowing what you have out there when you write your application and doing your inspections, coming up with the best tools. Keith was really talking about the project management side of it. That is huge. He said to use the schedule. At Callaway, we used a spreadsheet for our schedule a lot and had everything on there. But a very good, well-maintained spreadsheet. If you can have some software that has all of your license renewal components in it so that you can search against your work management and your work week schedule coming up and check when you're maybe doing some work on a license renewal component, that'll make your life a lot easier when it comes to tracking all these inspections. Then, yeah, implementation stuff is huge, and making sure that you have your programs right and your procedures right and the PMs right and the right populations. So next slide, please. So here's our contact information. I'm Anessa, and Keith spoke earlier. You can, that's my cell phone number. So if you have questions, you can call or text me. I like text. That's really easy. Also, emails are great too. I think it is time for some Q&A.
Okay.
Lisa's had her hand up this whole time. Can we see if Lisa has a?
Actually, if you could just please use the chat function or the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to submit questions. We do not have the capability to allow people to speak on the webinar. So if you could please add the questions to the Q&A. We've got quite a few questions, so we'll go ahead and jump in, but please do add your questions. We'll try to get through as many as we can before the top of the hour. And there were a number of questions related to AI, so I'm going to try to group a couple together. So the first question is, what is your process when you use AI to prepare a review? And in doing so, how do you, what's your process for identifying errors? Whether it might be improper sources or, hallucinations, so to speak, and imaginary sources. Not sure if that's Keith or Anessa. Keith, do you want to answer that?
That'd be Keith.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I was reading through I was kind of perusing through those questions whenever you were going through that. And one of the things I emphasized was knowing the capabilities of the AI company that you're hiring and what their AI can do and what the self-checks are as far as the information. AI is like anything else. It takes what you put in and processes, compares it, does a gap analysis on it, and comes back with an answer. And again, you don't lose the human touch there, because when it comes back with that answer, that's where, the expertise has to go in and look at that and make sure that it's right. And I've heard the stories about the fantasy references and nothing there, but the team that we're using are very thorough, and like I said, we go back and double check each one of the products that come out of our AI after we put the input in.
Okay, thanks, Keith. And I just want to ask a couple more questions specific to AI before we move on. Do you use AI only to review applications, or does it also support the authoring of applications?
We're working on that very thing, in that the NRC is open to that as far as the authoring part of it. And um, once you put in all the information from like plants, like situations, BWR, PWR, however, whatever you're working with, applications, because they got an original application. Everybody's got an original application, and they may have a 40 to 60 year application that they've got out there. So those are out there, and they're hard print. They're there. We can put those in. So once you do all that, really it turns into I'll call it an authored document from the AI is what the finished product is. And so that just rolls right into your application, if that answers your question.
Okay, thanks, Keith. We'll move on. I believe, Vanessa, this, excuse me. I believe this question is for you. You
Okay.
indicate that the sites should develop plan programs that actually make sense. What's been your experience for requesting an exemption to do less than what is in the GAL? Do you have to demonstrate that the plant is not as severe as the generic plant used for GAL, or how do you do that?
I have a really good success rate with requesting exemptions. It's pretty much 100%. What you need to do, there is no generic plant. Every single plant is an individual site, and it's a real site. It's not just some generic mannequin that's out there that is the model plant. Every single site is different. And so you need to have a solid technical understanding of that site. A thorough understanding of the operating experience is huge. If they've got positive OE, that's great. If there is any kind of negative OE where there may have been some aging in the past, you draw a box around it and say, this is what happened. This is why it happened. This is what was done to correct it. And if it was not an acute situation that you can point to, like a crane was driven in the wrong spot and damaged buried components, that's an acute thing that happens. If it's something more generic, like just general corrosion or a CFR Part 21 issue where maybe some coating was a bad batch and that was installed and it has since degraded. I'm speaking in buried pipe right now, but there's other programs where this would apply. Then that would be some negative OE. And you can, as long as you can draw a box around, this is all that was affected by it and it has been dealt with, then that's okay. If it's something that you can't really draw a box around, then you adjust the program in one way or the other to say, hey, this is what we're doing about it programmatically, because this is a problem that we have that's a site-specific problem. But you might be able to do something different in another area. It might not be the one-size-fits-all option that's presented in the GAL. It can be a as good or better option, or it can be a, look, we really don't have a problem with this, so we're going to do less than what you're asking us for at NRC.
Okay. Thanks, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Next question. There are some PWR reactor vessels with projected lifespans of over 100 years. What are your thoughts on the NRC considering subsequent license renewal beyond 100 years? I'm not sure if this would be for you, Keith.
So
Well,
I'll let you answer it, Keith.
All right. There's another question that kind of falls in line with this, where the gentleman was asking about the differences in the situation we're in now and the situation we were in the 80s and 90s. And I think these two tie into each other. the reason they're looking at these plants, I don't know of any right now that are going from 80 to 100. I know we got a lot going from 60 to 80 in SLR. And I think to tie that to what the difference in the situation we got now and we did in the 80s and 90s. The 80s and 90s, the power grid was more than adequate to handle what was going on as far as industrial revolution and what was happening. Now with the grid issues that we have and what's happening with power and where we're going, the projection is that we'll basically not have enough energy to run the grid in the next 5 to 10 years. So everyone realizes right now, or has come to the realization, what all of us had known all along, was that nuclear is the way to go. So that's definitely the process, and that's definitely the difference. Is now we've got a situation where we can't keep up with the demand, and the only way to keep up with it is through nuclear. So they're looking at these plants. I would probably take a bet that you won't see one go to 100 years, because you're going to see new technology coming out. You're going to see new plants coming out, smaller modular reactors. You won't see the big 1,500 megawatts plants anymore. There'll be plug and play reactors that are coming out that are much more simpler, where just like the Navy's been doing for 30, 40 years with their submarines and aircraft carriers and other boats, that you pull the reactor out, you put a new one in, and you tune it back up and off it goes. So long answer is, the difference is the grid demand right now. We have got to have power to support the grid demand with all the technology that's going on and where we're headed. And it's got to happen fairly quickly. So,
See,
okay.
Keith, I kind of disagree with you on that point about them not going to 100 years. I bet you that some of these, if the reactor vessels and primary site is good to go for 100 years, let them run. Because it's a lot cheaper to do another license renewal than it is to build a whole new site. Even with these smaller ones, I might be wrong and things could change in the next 20 years, but as long as the primary side's good, and some sites are proactively replacing some of those other components on the secondary and tertiary sides and these support systems that need to be replaced, or these aging management programs are doing their job and adequately managing aging, it might be economically viable to let them keep running.
Yeah, I was just my point was that we may not have the need for it to go 100 years, but and I agree with you that some of those vessels out there will do it if the chemistry's been good on them. The other thing is, and what we're seeing real heavy right now on the implementation side, is the NRC has got a lot of questions about structures, concrete structures. Goes back to the opportunistic inspections on structures that are underground, underwater. They want to know how the infrastructure around their reactors is holding up. So that's going to be the telltale right there on how these older plants survive.
Okay, thank you both. Next question. Are you designing licensing programs for nuclear spent fuel recycling facilities?
No, but I could.
Okay.
I've asked the same question myself. Are we going to get into that business? That's kind of like the wild, wild west right now, I think, with everything's coming out of that, because you got a lot of different industries that are opening up around nuclear that we didn't have before. We got people that are starting to do enrichment. They want to put together plants back in the United States that does enrichment. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but I wouldn't put it. It's going to happen. They got to be licensed, so it's going to be out there.
Well, and they didn't want to do recycling here in the States due to proliferation concerns. That was oh gosh, what's his name? Jimmy Carter signed that. But I don't want to speak too much on this. It might have come out in one of the more recent regulations that passed, or bills that came through. That might be allowed now. It's interesting.
Okay. I've got time for a few more questions here. The next one is, can videoing and cataloging implementations be helpful given the turnover rates and searching for background information?
I'll jump in on that one. Um, a lot of the plants I know, a couple of the energy plants and several other plants have gone through that process of basically videoing everything in the plant so that you can go into your share drive and put in a latitude and longitude on the plant and figure out exactly where you are. Look at a specific valve, they got a picture of it. So to answer your question, yes, it's something that can be utilized. And like we were saying, as people move on, that data is still there. That's hard data that's still there that you can pull from. And you can also, Anessa was talking about inspections and do you need inspection? Is it really required? They're actually getting to the point where if you can do a inspection with a visual inspection, if the details are enough that you can see what you're looking for. So a lot of that's going to be included in these implementations.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Next question, and I'll leave it up to either of you to address this. While I agree that there are needed changes at the NRC to streamline and improve their processes, I'm concerned that the emphasis on safety is becoming secondary. The NRC has been the gold standard in the industry, and I believe this is a strong competitive advantage for the US. Do you share any concerns about their new approaches?
I'll, uh,
Um,
I'll jump first.
oh,
The,
well,
the gentleman
okay.
that I work with in Excel, the gentleman I work with in Excel are our senior partners are both retired NRC folks, so they understand. And what I saw and what I heard at the last task force meeting that Anessa was talking about, where they were discussing it, no, they are not compromising safety in any shape or form. What the mandate that came down to NRC was it's too expensive, it takes too long. You got to fix it. We can't afford to re-license these plants at the cost of what's going on. You just need to trim that down. So they are going in and trimming the fat from what they can do, which is faster response. They're talking about having reducing applications down 12 month. They're at 18, they want to get it to 12 months, which is huge, given it's usually been a 2 or 3 year affair. So that's condensing a lot of information into a real tight window. But that's what they're doing. And like I was emphasizing before, they've been mandated, and once they reach their mandate, the pressure's off of them. But it's on us now as the folks that are doing this work to get aligned with them
Right.
so that we can make it affordable also.
I will say that folks who work at plants do have safety in mind. There is nobody who wants a safer plant than the folks who work there, because everybody lives close to it, or a lot of folks who work at the plant live around there, and that's their family. I live 5 miles from a plant. A lot of my friends still work out at that plant, and we all care a whole lot about the safety of the place. So it's not just during this 12-month inspection or application review are we focused on safety. Focus on safety is happening at nuclear sites 365 days a year. As far as like Keith was saying, a lot of the things that have been being focused on in license renewal applications don't necessarily directly impact safety. And that's what's been taking so long. It's operating experience reviews and just combing through stuff. And it's like, well, did they miss telling us about something? And it's something that's been addressed 8 years ago. And it's not an immediate concern for safety, or even going into the future, probably it's not a concern for safety. As far as streamlining the process to get the reviews done quicker, no, it's mostly just administrative. Safety's happening.
Okay, well, thank you both. With that, I know we are at the end of the hour. I did want to turn it over to Keith and Nessa for any final comments before we close out.
Thank you for hosting us. Really enjoyed the discussion.
Absolutely.
I'll second that. Appreciate you giving us the platform. And it's an exciting time. I wish I was 30 years old again. It's an exciting time. Absolutely love nuclear. Love everything about it. It's clean, it's green, and it's the wave of the future. I'm excited to see the first starship that has a nuclear reactor for power.
Yeah,
That's
agreed.
not too far away. So
Well, thank you again, Keith and Nessa. Really appreciate the discussion, the presentations. And thank you all to the attendees for participating. We will be sending out an email in the next day or so with a notification that the recording and slides are available if you wish to revisit the discussion. So thanks again, and look forward to seeing you on another webinar soon. Bye all.
Take care.